Hello and welcome to today's edition of Hughes at 10. It is just 9 minutes after 10, so I'm a little bit late, but I had some technical problems, but hopefully they're all resolved now and you can all see me and hear me. And if everyone watching this can just give it a like, because apparently that pushes it up the rankings or something. I don't know how it works. It's all double Dutch to me. However, if you do that, that'd be great. Give it a like. So today I want to talk a little bit about comings and goings. You see what I did there? Because the guy's name's okay. Anyway, so at the moment there is the threat of anarchy breaking out in America as the president at the moment doesn't acknowledge that he's lost the election, and there's only 4 senators, Republican senators, who have actually said, yeah, he's lost the election. And that leaves about, I don't know, 48 or 49 who are just backing Trump to the hilt. Meanwhile, in the UK, we've hit some horrific milestones. Yesterday, 50,000 people died of COVID-19 within a week, within a month of getting COVID-19. And it pushes our excess deaths in this year way over 70,000 above a normal year. But all eyes were on the Prime Minister's girlfriend. Yeah, you heard that right. The Prime Minister. So all this shit is going on, life and death situations. And we've also got the Brexit negotiations, which are going into overdrive. Michel Barnier, it's quite funny today. He tweeted a picture of a field, and he was standing in there. And he said, "I just walked out of the negotiations for a little bit of a walk, and I'm looking for a level playing field. I can't find one." And that was quite funny because obviously with the spivs and chancers and con men and swindlers that we have in government at the moment, it's not looking great for people who like, you know, decency and honor and respect and trust. It's not looking good at all. But at the backdrop of all this, did you know that the Prime Minister's girlfriend doesn't like Dominic Cummings? And so they had a big Barney in number 10, which resulted in Lee Kane storming out. This guy I've never heard of, but apparently he's very close with Dominic Cummings. And part of the Leave campaign, he was head of communications to number 10. He wanted the job of chief of staff, which no one's filled since Blowjob became prime minister, and basically that role has been fulfilled by Dominic Cummings, essentially, unofficially, and he's a bit pissed off that Johnson wants to put in anybody else but his man into that role. So he's got off in a big huff. And then Laura Kunsberg was running around going, "Oh, maybe Cummings will leave. Maybe Cummings will leave as well." And then Cummings like texted her on their on their Snapchat that they have, and he Snapchatted a picture of his. I don't know. I'm not going to go down that route. Basically, he let her know that he wasn't going to resign because, of course, he's not going to resign. The guy's a psychopath, and he's the most powerful psychopath in the country. Why would he resign? But what's interesting is that over the next couple of months, we might see more of this because it's going to be rats off a sinking ship time. Also in the news today, it was said that Brexit is going to, and I think this is a direct quote, turn Kent, the Garden of England, into a toilet. And they were saying there's a huge problem with bottles full of piss and people shitting in the lay-bys, and it's just going to get worse because of all the lorries that are going to be parked up in Kent in January. Now, apparently the National Haulage Association still haven't got their permits or the advice that they need to know what to do with their permits. And it's not going to come until quite a few days into December. It's a month away, which will leave them about 2 weeks to get prepared over Christmas. Yeah. Anyway, all this is going on, and the Prime Minister's girlfriend is a bit upset because she doesn't like Dominic Cummings. She's not alone in that. None of us like Dominic Cummings. I don't even think Dominic Cummings likes Dominic Cummings. But, you know, he's got a wife. I don't know how that happened, but there you go. And yeah, so this guy has basically been running Number 10. He used to work for, well, let's start at the beginning. In the 1980s, early 90s, beginning of the 90s, he was a public schoolboy here in Durham. He went to the Durham School, which is very posh, and I think it charges about 30 grand a year at the moment for boarders to stay and learn to be obnoxious little entitled pricks. Some of them get out. Some of them get out all right. Some of them escape. Do you know what I mean? Not everyone in Arkham Asylum turns into a criminal mastermind. Some of them just go home and they've been corrected and they turn to looking after the garden. Oh no, that'd be poison ivy, wouldn't it? Okay, look, that's a bad analogy. Forget about Arkham Asylum. Look, the point is not everyone who goes to private school is bad, but pretty much everyone who's back into private school. But except for Len McCluskey, who didn't, who's an embarrassment to all things Scouse as far as I'm concerned. And what's interesting about that article that I just mentioned, it was one of the guys from Unite that was saying all this about Kent and saying, oh, this is really bad. And I'm like, yeah, it's basically happened. One of the root causes of Brexit and the Tory majority and everything that's happened has been Len McCluskey. He was the guy who put the kibosh on David Miliband becoming party leader, the guy who would have won in 2015 had he been given a free rein. But, you know, we got what we got. And as a result of it, we got the Brexit referendum, we got Jeremy Corbyn, we got blah, 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 and now we've got Boris Johnson with an 80-seat majority. Well, 78 seat now, I think. So, yeah. But anyway, back to Carrie. Carry on Number 10. So this is a 32-year-old woman who's going out with a 60-something-year-old man or 50-something-year-old man, and they're going to get married. I mean, you know, imagine this, like, just even a few years ago. Would any of these conservative voters in Tunbridge Wells and the Cotswolds, would any of them stomach having a prime minister that's got 6 or 7, we don't know, children from several different mothers, and is in Downing Street with what my Auntie Dorothy would say, a bastard, he's a bastard child. Oh, you know, because they get really up and like upset about things like that, conservatives, when they're not, you know, going into your bedrooms and going, you've done it wrong, you're doing it wrong, stop that. Yeah, no, none of that. Excuse me, what's this got to do with you? I don't know, but I'm here and I want to tell you how to do it properly. But yeah, that's a conservative thing all around the world. But it just seems a bit odd that you've got a sort of philandering sex pest in the White House and you've got one in Number 10. And they wouldn't accept that if that was someone who was an ethnic minority or someone who was on the left. They just wouldn't accept it at all, which is remarkable. Anyway, Carrie and Boris, they're going to get married at some point, apparently, but not yet. Do you think she's forgiven him for the violinist or Jennifer Corey? Or was he still with his wife when he was with Jennifer Corey? Because I know he left his wife who was being treated for cancer for Carrie Symonds. Say that again. The Prime Minister of the United Kingdom left his wife who was being treated for cancer for his bit on the side. And this is the moral force of the nation, going out around the world as Foreign Secretary and now as Prime Minister, setting up these amazing new trade deals with everyone who's going to trust us loads because he's such a trustworthy person. But yeah, going back to this sort of this thing that's going on in Number 10, like, I really don't care. As far as I'm concerned, they could all go to hell. I just find it very interesting that there's this iron grip on Number 10 on the cabinet. Boris Johnson's filled it full of yes men and yes women. Hardly anyone dares to criticize him, have a go at him or whatever. And they're all Brexiteers, they're all hardline Brexiteers. And I think the other MPs in the Conservative Party are thinking now that Boris Johnson's a liability. But I don't understand why it's all being leaked and why it's been leaked, the idea that Cummings might go in January. It's been leaked time and time again that Boris, he's sick of the job. He doesn't enjoy it. He doesn't want to do it. He wants to do something else. And you know, he's very clever, but he's also very lazy. And I'm like, why are they leaking this stuff? Is that just so we don't turn up in London with pitchforks and torches? Is this a British thing where we think, oh, don't worry, the problem will sort itself out. You know, the trash will take itself out. Side note, Chris Williamson started a new political party today. But yeah, generally speaking, the trash doesn't take itself out. You have to take it out at the ballot box or with a pitchfork and a torch, if they're a vampire or a werewolf or a Boris Johnson. But I can't see him leaving. I can't see Dominic Cummings, and I might be wrong. I just can't see Dominic Cummings giving up all this power that he's got, and I can't see Boris Johnson doing it either. So yeah, Dominic Cummings, he was privately educated around here, and then in the 90s, he went to Russia for 3 years, and he got involved in an airline that went bust. Now, Russia in the 90s was crazy. If anyone's seen the movie, the Nicolas Cage movie, Lord of War, which I think is the last good Nicolas Cage movie, I think. Oh no, maybe Kick-Ass. Okay, well, yeah, he was the main character in that. Okay, yeah, the last good Nicolas Cage movie where he was the main character was a movie called Lord of War. And it was about an arms dealer from Ukraine, I think. And basically, once the Berlin Wall came down, he just made shitloads of money selling arms that he got from the old USSR, what's left of the old USSR, and selling them to African militias and South American militias, and just making shitloads of money. Basically, we don't know what Dominic Cummings was doing in the 90s, but he was there. And he was there at the same time that a young, at the time, I guess, an up-and-coming ex-KGB agent called Vladimir Putin was crawling himself up the party ranks to replace Boris Yeltsin. Boris Johnson, Boris Yeltsin, Boris Johnson, Boris Yeltsin, who presided over the 90s in Russia. It was a bit of a poison chalice, but also he liked to drink a lot. So that was probably an extra poison chalice for old Boris there. But yeah, and then when in the 90s, you got all these oligarchs who were Russians who made loads of money by taking over state assets. So the state gas fields and electricity companies and oil and all this kind of stuff. They dived in and went, right, I'll have that, and ran it as a private enterprise and made a fuckload of money. When Putin got in, he put half of the oligarchs in jail, and he made sure that the other half basically were there to do his bidding, whatever that bidding may be, or they will go to jail, or he'll just kill them, which he has a tendency to do to people that displease him. But yeah, the next few years after that, he was interviewed. There was an interview with him on the BBC where he just came across as the most despicable young Tory. I mean, you know, you meet old Tories and you think, okay, fair enough, but young Tories are just weird. I always think of the Harry Enfield sketch, you know, with the Conservative used to go door to door, and it's just that they're just a bit odd. I mean, no more odd than the socialist workers that you get in university, but at least they seem to have some social graces when they weren't, you know, screaming down your ear about NATO aggression in the South Balkans. But yeah, which is something I would never do. Something I would never, ever do. I would never just rant at people for half an hour at a time without them allowing to have a word in edgeways. Anyway, back to Cummings. In the early 2010s, he got a job working for Michael Gove in the Department of Education, and he was shit at it. He was really, really, really shit at it. And then he was brought back for the Brexit referendum to run the vote leave side of things. And he worked with Cambridge Analytica and basically micro-targeted people with Facebook ads based on things that they liked, that they were told would go away if we didn't leave the EU. And on the back of that, he basically got 1 million people who never really voted before to go out and vote to do something that they didn't really understand what they were doing. And then you get told, I knew what I was voting for. And you say, yeah, you're voting to turn Kent into a toilet. You were voting for empty shelves in the supermarket. You're voting for your children not to be able to work in Europe anymore without a work permit, which means they're not going to work anymore. Because why would you if you need a work permit? Like, why would you? Why would you employ someone from Britain who needs a work permit when you could just employ someone from France or Spain or Italy or Portugal or Greece or Latvia or Estonia or Lithuania or Poland, or I could go on. The point being that you could employ someone from somewhere else and you wouldn't have to pay a work permit. So, that's what he did. Anyway, so he was instrumental in the vote leave scumbaggery. And also, we had leave.eu as well. I really hope they lose their domain at the end of the year, because I've got projecthope.eu and I've got to move it to the EU. So hopefully I'm gonna re-register it in Ireland. That's my plan. Otherwise, it's going to change to projecthope.org.uk, which isn't as good. Plus, there's also a projecthope.org in America, which is a charity, and I don't want to step on their toes. I want it to be, obviously, this is about the EU. It's about rejoining the EU as soon as we possibly can. But yeah, that's something that I think we're just going to have to put on the back burner for a little bit. But I'm raring to go if we get a bit of a gang together to start pushing, agitating to rejoin the EU. It will be a long and hard struggle. I've got no doubt of that, but there we go. Anyway, so this Cummings creep, he was no friend of Theresa May, so he wasn't too involved in Theresa May's government. But then he was hanging around like a bad smell with Boris Johnson, because it's like Boris Johnson's probably quite intelligent but lazy, whereas Dominic Cummings is as thick as a brick, but he's really industrious. Like, he doesn't sleep. He just writes shite. He's like a human ad machine, marketing babble machine. He just writes lots and lots of marketing babble and uses words that make no sense to anybody except him in his own mad little brain. But he thinks he's very clever, so very much a Dunning-Kruger effect there. But Boris Johnson's in thrall to this guy, to this lemonhead, Dominic Cummings. And when earlier this year, Dominic Cummings absolutely smashed any respect people had for just the basic human decency of not giving each other a bloody deadly disease. Dominic Cummings just rode a horse and chariots through that by driving up here to Durham, to his parents' farm, which is down the road, staying there for 2 weeks. He drove up knowing he had COVID. He knew his wife had COVID. So his wife had tested positive. He had symptoms. I mean, it was, it wasn't the hardest game of Cluedo. And they put their child, and at this time, we didn't know that COVID didn't really affect children too much. He put his child in the back of the car and drove all the way from London to Durham, which is, depending on traffic, is a good 5-hour drive. And he reckoned he didn't stop for petrol. And then he came to his parents because he couldn't get babysitting in childminding in London if anything happened to him and his wife. This guy's one of the richest men in Britain. His wife's father owns a castle. And yet he was so concerned about childcare, he came up here so his parents could look after the kid if they were incapacitated. And that's where I'm like, oh my God, like seriously, oh my God, you're that rich. You could employ an army of nurses. You could kit them out in full PPE. You could kit them out like they're going into Chernobyl, okay? And they could play with your son for 2 weeks while you get over COVID. And as long as you don't die, I'm sure, things will turn out all right. But no, drives up the road. And if it had just been that would have been shit. And I think that would have been a resignation kind of, thing where he said one thing to the nation through Boris Johnson and then done another. But then on his wife's birthday, he took her out to Barnard Castle. And it's a bitch of a drive, actually, to Barnard Castle from here. It's about 45 minutes. And a lot of the roads are single carriageway roads. So if you're trying to, you're stuck behind a tractor, which happens, you've got to go into the oncoming traffic to, get past it. And there's loads of roundabouts, shitloads of roundabouts on the way. And it just seems like the maddest way to do what he claimed to be doing at that point. I know I'm going over old ground. I know everyone watching this knows this stuff inside out, but it's just worth repeating just to understand, just to get across how utterly abhorrent what this man did is. He drove there, and then he got out by the river, and he had a wander around. He got seen by a bunch of people, and he drove back, and they stopped in a forest, and then he got seen by some more people, and then he came back here to Durham. And they kept it secret. They kept it so secret that his wife, who writes for the New Statesman, wrote, is it New Statesman or one of those magazines? Not New Statesman, the other one, the Spectator. I think she writes for the Spectator, and she wrote an article saying that she talking about dealing with the COVID when they had it, and making out that they were in London, very much making out that they were in London in the article, misleading the readers, the editor, I guess, of the Spectator, and it's just something that you look at and you're like, okay, so you covered this up, and then finally it got out. Somebody found out, and it was written about in the Guardian and maybe other news sources. At this point, you've basically committed a crime, you've covered it up, and it's at a time when the nation needs leadership. It needs to know it can trust its leaders to do the right thing. And instead of sacking this guy, Boris Johnson allows him to make a speech from the Rose Garden. I didn't even know Number 10 had a frickin' Rose Garden. I thought that was the White House. From the Rose Garden, the Number 10, and he sits there with his water in his shirt, and he says, he looks at the journalists, and he says straight out that he had to go to Barnard Castle on his wife's birthday to test his eyesight. And it became a joke straight away. It became a meme. It became a BrewDog drink. But the fact is, it's disgraceful that not only he did that, not only did he cover it up, but then to insult the intelligence of every single mammal, reptile, amphibian, and fossil on the planet by saying to them, I was testing my eyes, is just beyond the pale. And the disgusting thing is that nearly all Tory voters just went, yeah, all right. And you're like, hang on, you would not accept that from anyone else. Anyone. If your son or your daughter or your mum or your dad or your brother or your sister pulled that kind of shenanigans and made you look like a twat, you will be like, I'm sorry, but you're off. At least you're off the Christmas card list. I think there would be a little bit of a rebuke for them doing it, but no, nothing, absolutely nothing. Not just from Boris Johnson, but from the Conservative voters who in every poll, 40%, every poll, 40%, I will still vote Conservative. Who's doing the best job on COVID? Boris Johnson, yeah, 35%, 30%. And you're like, oh my God, what do these people have to do? But then we look across at the Atlantic and we see what Trump's done and got away with. And I think at the end of the day, what Cummings and Johnson and Farage and Trump and Bolsonaro and Duterte and Dejan and Putin and God, who else, what they represent is this absolute dearth of morality. That's it. Morality's out the window. There's no right, there's no wrong. You just do whatever gives you pleasure. You just do whatever you think is right. And all I can think when I think of that is the last days of Rome. This what's his name? Bacchus was the big guy. Bacchanal feast. This orgy of just sin and Levidiousness? No, I can't even say that word. I don't even know what it is. Try not to use big words. I'm far too common. It's just it's so accepted. It's so accepted by people who see themselves as Christian, people who see themselves as moral and upstanding citizens, the people who would complain to the authorities if the people next door to them shot a porno in their own home. These are the kind of people who are now looking at Trump and looking at Johnson and looking at Cummings and going, "Yep, nothing wrong here. That's perfectly acceptable. There's a rational explanation for everything." And the only reason they're doing that is because football, the footballification of politics. They're on my team. They're on my team. They can do no wrong. They can do absolutely no wrong whatsoever. And when they do wrong, I'm going to make loads of excuses for them. And I will never, ever, ever admit that I've ever done anything wrong in their life. And it's frustrating. And I think that anyone watching this will know someone who is in love with a wrong 'un. And whenever you try and broach the subject that that person might not be right for them for some reason, maybe the broken windows or the time that they tried to burn down the house. And they're like, no, there's a rational excuse for everything that's happened. When they're standing there with their ear hacked off in their hand. There's a rational explanation for this, and I will not hear a word against them. And you're just like, okay, nothing I can do about this. I'm just going to step backwards very, very slowly. And that's the situation that we're in at the moment. So yeah, Cummings to me represents, Cummings and Boris Johnson and everybody else, but particularly Cummings, he represents a new paradigm in the world where you can just get away with everything. Nothing matters anymore. And if the law doesn't matter, if morality doesn't matter, if the future doesn't matter, then our society is really, really in danger. It's really, really in danger, because the last lot of people who believe that with every ounce of their being were the Nazis. And the last people who believed that their leader was absolutely beyond reproach and anyone who said anything bad about them was actually committing blasphemy was the Japanese during World War II. I know obviously there's been more cults and dictators since then, but I mean the one that's caused the most damage to the world. And I look at this and I think, I don't want to go down that route. I do not want to go down that route. And what I do want to do, though, is I want to finish today's episode fairly on time for once. So I'm going to leave it there on terms of, me just having a rant. Sorry, my computer's come unplugged. Eddie Burns is saying, all you need is love. Yeah. All is love you need is need. No, all you love is need. All you love, yeah, you just love needing. But yeah, I'm just going to go through a few of your messages. Wow, there's a lot today. Hello, there's lots of hellos. Hello. Bargain Hunt was in Liverpool today. We said that. Okay, blowjob. Yeah, blowjob. Yeah. Carrie said there should be interfering with government, but since she got a Brexiteer kicked out, I'm not that bothered. Yeah, Ascended that. That's what I was like. I don't really care about these people coming or going, but I'd rather Cummings just went. Nick Carter's saying tonight suggestions vote leave. Crew in number 10 arguing that there's a push from Remainers for a 12-month Brexit transition extension. Yeah, well, that's something that should happen because we're in the middle of a fucking pandemic and we're not ready to basically do this, okay? Imagine if, Joe, there's a good example of this is, what's the Channel 4 show with the awful houses? Oh, Grand Designs, where someone, they either take a lovely house and make it awful, or they just build a box with a plastic see-through wall on one side of the box and go, ta-da! And you're like, oh my God. And I just don't understand how anyone in that show has enough money that they just go, oh yeah, it's going to cost another £800,000. And you're like, how do you, what? Anyway, imagine if, so it's Grand Designs and these people go, we're going to build this house to live in and we're going to move in on January the 1st. Although everything goes wrong, as it always does in Grand Designs, and by January the 1st, the roof is not on the house, okay? There's no roof on the house. There's no windows in the window holes, okay? There's no glass. It's just holes in the windows. There's no floor. It's just broken glass on the floor. That's it, right? And the broken glass is set into concrete, so you can't actually sweep it up, okay? And there's no bed there. The bed is just a sack of hot gravel. And basically you shit in a bucket, okay? Now, they can stay in their home that they're living in at the moment. They don't have to move into the nightmare house. It's also possessed. I mean, it's possessed by devils and poltergeists, and it's full of animals. There's animals everywhere just shitting all over the floor. It's as bad as a house could possibly be. So they're in the little terraced house, right? Waiting to move into their big new, box in the middle of the countryside with a perspex side down one side. And basically, if they move there, it's going to be awful. Their life is going to be hell. And the presenter says to them, but it's okay. You have the option. You could just wait until the house is ready before you move in there. You know, prop a floor down, put the windows in, get rid of the animals, get an exorcist in to get rid of all the poltergeists. Brilliant. And they go, no, we're going to move in anyway because we said we would. And if we don't, even though nothing's ready, then you know, no one will trust us ever again. And you're like, oh my God, I don't know what to say to that. That's just absolutely bonkers and seems really, really self-defeating. But in my analogy, the one thing that's wrong is it's not them who are going to have to live in the house. It's us. It's all of us. It's me and you and everyone in the UK who's watching this are going to have to live in this shitty fucking house full of horse manure and broken glass and no roof and it's the middle of winter. Oh God, that's just too depressing to think about. So yes, a Brexit transition for another year would be a very, 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 very good idea. However, this government's not a big thing on ideas. It's a big thing on ideology, but I don't think that's the same thing. I think that's a bit different. Right, sounds like Salford. Right, right, hang on, how did you know that? He's got a girlfriend. What's wrong with her? Sick. Yeah, I know. Betty says, sorry, I'm late. I was late too, Betty. Don't feel bad about it. Can someone explain the Schengen Union? Why are countries why Norway and Switzerland are so rich? Well, to explain Schengen was negotiated so that people could move across the countries of the Schengen Agreement without having to. You know, once you're in Schengen, you didn't have to show your passport to anyone. You need to travel around with ID if you're not in your home country. But but the reason why Norway and Switzerland are so rich is because they are small countries with that have made a lot of what they've got. Norway has a sovereign wealth fund funded by their oil that they had. They had a population of about 6 million when I was born in 1979, and so did Ghana at the time as well. And whereas Ghana's population is now in the tens of millions, I think Norway's like 8. It's the population's hardly risen at all. That's another reason. Switzerland has always made the most of its location. It really is in the center of Europe, and it's always been very canny with its technology, stuff like that. But also, and you know, this is one of the things that Switzerland ain't so great at. Until I think 2001 or 2, Switzerland wasn't a member of the UN, you know. Then the World Trade Organization was on, and before that, GATT was headquartered in Switzerland, and it had some UN agencies there, but it wasn't a member of the UN, which is bonkers. But one of the reasons that might have been is because of the Nazi gold in the Swiss banks, which they denied for decades and decades and decades. It's a funny story, actually. There was like a security guard or something, and he was bored one night. I think he was a night security guard, and he just sat down at the desk of the bank he was in, the Swiss bank, and he started reading the papers, like the not the newspapers, but these wadded papers that were on the desk. And as he was reading through them, he became more and more concerned that this was talking about Nazi gold that had been stolen from the Jews that had been killed by the Nazis. And obviously some of the Jews managed to get away, but a lot of them didn't. And this gold had been stolen off them by the Nazis and put in Swiss banks. And then the other thing that Swiss banks did, which was terrible, is a lot of the African dictators from the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, they put all of their wealth into Swiss banks. Also, De Beers, I think, is a Swiss company. I might be wrong with that. It might be Dutch, but I think that De Beers moved when apartheid fell in South Africa. I think De Beers moved their HQ from South Africa to Switzerland. So that's another way. So Switzerland's not really the sort of moral arbiter of rightness, although we talk about things being the Switzerland of Central America and stuff like that. At the same time, the Swiss have not been entirely great for the world, I think. I don't know. Someone's going to correct me in the comments here. Go, Graham, piss off. The Swiss are amazing, but great chocolate. I guess that doesn't make up for it at all, but great chocolate. It's kind of a Benny Hill sketch. Yeah, plenty of bad people went to state school, but with talented who went to state school, they don't get anywhere near power. Chubai, you're absolutely right. Basically, when 93% of the population don't go to private school, and yet that 7% managed to be a third of all the people who go to Oxford, a third of all the people who go to Cambridge, a third of all the people who go to Durham, at least, over half the top judiciary, 60% of the cabinet, everyone in all the top jobs, in all the parties generally, all the top journalist jobs as well, Laura Kunsberg, Andrew Marr, all the hangers-on that we're seeing now, like Kate Bingham and Dido Harding, or Typhoid Dido as she's known. I mean, it is just astronomical, the amount of influence they have. And I always say 7% of the population, 99% of the power. And yeah, I'm not going to go on about that because I normally do, but yeah, I do think that there is what I like to call the soggy biscuit, or the soggy cracker ceiling, which if you didn't go to one of these posh schools, you just can't get above a certain level. I also just between me and the 99 people watching this, I also experienced that in the Remain campaign, because some quite high-profile Remain campaigners were privately educated, and some of them were all right. Some of them were all right, and I hear a word against them. But some of them, especially the ones who buzzed around the People's Vote lot, they were just quite rude and entitled and obnoxious. And okay, I'm just going to leave it there. I'm not digging up that corpse to give it another whipping. Do as I say, not as I do is the motto. Yeah, Dimitri, you're right. John Barleycorn, Boris the Liar wants to be king of the world as a kid. He's a megalomaniac and won't leave voluntarily. John, I think you're absolutely right. I really can't see him going. He'll have to be pushed out. He will have to be pushed out. Cage is probably the worst actor to ever win an Oscar. Tom, the thing is, in Leaving Las Vegas, he was really good. And he was good in Raising Arizona. He's been good in loads of movies, but when he's bad, oh my God, it's just the worst. Yeah, Bangkok Deadly. Was it Bangkok Deadly? Was that what it was called? Oh my God. And the Wicker Man remake with the bees. Jesus, no. Leaving Las Vegas was good, yeah. Viva Las Vegas was good as well. Poor Nick, forever the wide-eyed eccentric. Oh God, we're all talking about Nicolas Cage here. Lord of War is a great film. Yes, Lord of War is a great film, and I really, I think everyone should try and watch it. So I got something in my eye. You can tell it's live, can't you? I'm just trying to get my eye. If I was on like a WhatsApp meeting or whatever, not a WhatsApp meeting, but a Zoom meeting, I'd just turn my camera off for a minute while I adjust my eye. Just little versions of their stupid parents about young conservatives. Is that the one where he drank himself to death? Yes, Betty. That's Leaving Las Vegas. It was a bit miserable. But Elizabeth Shue, who was really good in that movie, but really bad as Marty's girlfriend in Jennifer in parts 2 and 3 of Back to the Future, because they switched out his girlfriend. Keir Starmer should apologise for trying to stop Brexit in order to win back Leave voters in Labour's former heartland, a group of MPs said, according to The Independent. Yeah, this is brilliant. Like, I keep trying to point this out to people, but let's just say that, and I know it was just the electorate and it was just the people who voted, right? But let's just say that all these people voted for Brexit. 52% of the population, of the voting population, voted for Brexit. 48% voted against Brexit. Now, if you are a Brexit voter, you have the choice to vote for Nigel Farage or Boris Johnson, right? Or someone on the left, right? Chances are you're going to vote for someone on the right rather than someone on the left. Just in general, if you are a mad Brexiteer, you're probably not going to vote Labour. You're probably not going to vote Lib Dem. You're probably not going to vote Greens, okay? Because they don't. There's other values apart from being Brexity that Brexiteers have, and they are best exemplified by the selfishness of the people on the right, like Nigel Farage, and the hypocrisy of the people on the right, like Nigel Farage and Boris Johnson. And so forget about that. Forget about all those people, because yeah, okay, there's 16 million people in that cohort. A good 14 million of them at least are going to vote for the Conservatives or UKIP or Brexit Party, right? That leaves you with 16 million people who voted against Brexit. And here's the thing, you don't need 50% of a constituency to win a constituency in a first past the post system. So, stay with me on this. When you see 1 million Remainers on the street, activists marching against Brexit, you don't just go, I'm going to fuck off to Morecambe right now because that seems like a really important thing to do. You go, oh my God, I need to talk at this rally and I need to get all these people behind me, not just to vote for my party because I'll tell them that we'll stop Brexit one way or another. No, what I'll do is I'll get these people, these million activists, to go and knock on every house on their street. And if they had done that and just had every single person who went to those rallies knock on just their street, that's it. That's all it would have taken to make sure that the Tories got absolutely battered in the last election. But we didn't do that because Jeremy Corbyn and Chris Williamson, he was suspended by them, but all the Lexity lot, they all just went, oh no, we don't want your vote, Graham. We don't want your support. Million people marching on the street against the flagship Tory Conservative policy. No, we don't want you. We're gonna Brexit's a done deal and there's nothing we can do about it. Oh, what a shame. And I'm like, it's not just obnoxious. It's not just gaslighting. It's stupid. It's the stupidest thing they could possibly do, to go, oh, we'll go after this tiny percentage of right-wing Brexiteers who vote Labour. The law of diminishing returns on that one, isn't it? It's like Jaws 4. Anyway, right, back to Tom. He says, what's your thoughts on the problems in the Labour Party these days? Tom, I think that's a really good topic, and I might talk about that tomorrow, because it's very frustrating that just at the point where Labour were finally, in the opinion polls, way ahead of the Conservatives, and 3%, 5% gap in the opinion polls, and that's when it all shit hit the fan with the Equalities and Human Rights report coming out, and Corbyn being an idiot, because he is an idiot, and then all of his fans going, ah, my God, how could you possibly sack this man who has brought the party into disrepute, which is what he's been, sorry, he's not been sacked, has he? He's been suspended. That's what he's suspended for, pending an investigation. But yeah, Tom, I think I'll talk about that in another show. You've seen Lord of the Rings, you've probably seen what Cummings looks like. Yeah. Well, he's kind of like if Gollum and Grima Wormtongue got it on and had a baby, he would look like Dominic Cummings and act like him as well. Except the precious would be Brexit, obviously. Graham, I used to love your pub crawl vlogs. Yeah, well, I want to go back to doing them, but we're locked down. This has been a bit of a weird year. But yeah, if we can get back into the pub next year, once the vaccine's out, then yes, I will be making more of those pub chats, because they're always fun. And they had a tendency to go off on a tangent as well. But I always tried to pull it back to the main theme of what we were talking about. They keep telling us in Scotland that we need to use the euro when we're independent, as if it's a threat. Good point by Betty there. The value of the pound against the euro has just gone since 2016. It's like, you'll have to use the euro, and like, okay, you mean that stable economy, that stable currency? Yeah, okay, well, that's fine with me. You've seen that the pound has gone from being a stable currency to being not developing, emerging. It's now on the level of emerging currency. Great. Full chem suit nurse. I'd love to see it. Okay, we've got a strange Trump person here. I'm gonna have to just do something about them. Yeah. Hide user. There we go. Okay, we have a troll. Yeah, don't worry. I've just taken the troll off. He can put more messages if he likes, but he's gone. Need a moderator. You can't actually block people. There's no. You you can report, remove, put user in timeout, hide user on this thing, and then the one just below that is add moderator, and you're like, why would you put block right next to let this person do what they like? God, I hope I didn't press the wrong thing then. Should have gone to Specsavers. Cummings, blah blah blah. Oh wow, loads more messages have just come up. Evening. Hello, David Murphy. It was Corbyn's deliberate choice. He was given the option not to be an arse. He was. Why did he make why did Corbyn send that a message like half an hour before Starmer was due to give his? He's not the leader anymore. No, I was like, oh, I'm going to steal your thunder, and I'm going to say, oh, it was exaggerated though, wasn't it? It wasn't really that bad. 2 Jewish MPs left the party in tears, for fuck's sake. How bad do you want it? Oh well, no one died. Reminds me of the sketch from the Day to Day with Steve Coogan when he's the pool manager, and he's like, in 1980, no one died. In 1981, no one died. And he goes through all the years, and then eventually gets, in 1987, some people died. And that's what everyone goes on about. It's like, yeah, just you can't just diminish bad shit that you've done. You just say, okay, I'm really sorry, but Corbyn's incapable of doing that. And we saw that on the Andrew, what's that wanker called on the Politics Today show? Andrew Neil. Andrew Neil said to him, "You're going to apologise for the hurt you caused the Jewish community," and he couldn't even do that. He couldn't even apologize for the hurt. Sorry, not even him. The hurt that had been caused to the Jewish community, and he couldn't say sorry for it in an interview. And I was just like, oh my god. And one of the things, some of you might know this, but I had because I had Mike Galsworthy, I had Femi, I had Jack Dar on my back to make videos telling people to vote strategically, and so. In my basement studio against my green screen, I'd made all these snazzy videos saying, I know you don't like Corbyn, I don't like him either, but you know what I don't like even more, and then listed all the things that are going to happen with Brexit, and they were great videos. But after watching that interview with Corbyn, I was like, I can't put this online. I just all that time, all that effort for now. Yeah. I feel that way about the whole of the Remain campaign. Hopefully the Rejoin campaign will be a lot more successful eventually. Okay, so David's saying, I march. Good on you. It was as a European, I'd immediately accept Scotland into the EU if it was up to me. That's from Stephanie. Yeah, I mean, they'll just waltz straight in. They're an ex-member. There's people going, oh no, but they've got to change the economy, and they've got to do all this, and they've got to jump for all these things. No, they don't. The EU is quite flexible. It's got its core principles, but apart from that, as long as you are going to be an asset to the team rather than a drain on it, then they're going to accept you. You're going to get in. You're going to get in. Corbyn is finished forever, but he wants revenge, as do his cultists. And he's saying that, yeah, I agree. Honestly, Jeremy Corbyn is the Trump of the left. He won't accept that he's been beaten. He won't accept that he ever loses anything. Remember in the 2017 election, he said, I think it was very clear who won that election. Yeah, Jeremy, it was, not you. Your party didn't win. You did better than expected, but oh my God, it's like thinking that it's like giving a participation award for the kid who comes last in the sack race, and then he's gone, oh well, I did better than anyone thought I was going to do. I mean, no one thought I was even going to finish. Yeah, but Jeremy, it took you 2.5 years. Yeah, but I got there in the end, didn't I? And then this election got a year ago now. Oh my God, that's gone so fast. So 11 months ago, in that election, he said he won the argument. What the fuck was the argument? What was he arguing? Oh, yeah, I'm the biggest idiot in the world. And no, you're not, Jeremy. And he says, I won that argument. Oh, yeah, you did. Well done. Slow hand clap. I'd move to Ireland if I didn't love Liverpool so much. Yeah, Ireland's beautiful. I love the bones of Ireland and Scotland. And Liverpool. Oh, I'm so torn. I don't know what I'm doing in Durham. So UK financial services are not allowed in the EU. That's going to hurt. Yep. 80% of our GDP is services. which also have no ceiling. They have no maximum tariff set by the WTO. So if you're selling lamb to a country that you don't have a trade deal with, there's a maximum that you can set as a tariff, which is like 40 or 45%. With services, there's no upper limit. What gets me is the referendum wasn't fair. The Leave side should have had a clear plan instead of emotions. Yeah, can't argue with that, Wally. John Barleycorn saying Corbyn's not a good politician. Good politicians know what to say and how to play the game to get what they want. Corbyn was never there when he was needed and dropped the ball time and time again. He was the worst. I mean, he wasn't just the worst politician of all time, as far as I'm concerned. He was the most unpopular party leader in the world. In the world! The world! He had an approval rating that hovered between -40 and -60. -60. And just to put that in comparison with other world leaders who are wildly unpopular, Trump's popularity is -10. Okay, Corbyn has absolutely no charisma. Again, yeah, well, that was always the question, wasn't it? Who would you rather go to the pub with, Corbyn or Boris Johnson? And everyone just said Johnson. I wouldn't want to go anywhere with Corbyn. He just seemed like the worst person to end up on a long coach journey sitting next to. In a lot of ways, he was just absolutely devoid of charisma. Really reminds me of the 1979 Peter Sellers movie Being There, in which he plays Chance Gardner, I think, and he's just this simple-minded gardener, and he comes out with this stuff, and everyone thinks it's like deeply profound, and he ends up running for president. It's quite prophetic. We could have had a government of national unity, put an end to no deal, and Corbyn stopped it. Yeah, he did. And Corbyn's fans say, "Oh, well, you wanted what was her name? What was the woman's name? Leader of the Lib Dems last year. Terrible. Swinson. You wanted Swinson to be." I said, no. Margaret Beckett could have been the interim leader. It didn't matter. It was just that for the national unity government to work, it needed to get the ex-Tories who had been kicked out of the Tory party by Dominic Cummings. It needed them on side, and they wouldn't join Jeremy Corbyn, right? So just as a little intermediate thing, before we have our next election, right, you put someone else in charge who doesn't really want to be in, doesn't have any long-term political ambitions. It could have been Ken Clarke, it could have been Margaret Beckett, it could have been anyone, as long as they were kind of old and not going to be hanging around for ages. And you say, right, we're going to put you in charge at the will of all the people in the government of national unity. When we're done doing what we need to do, we can all go our different ways. We just need to get this thing sorted before it destroys the nation. And Jeremy Corbyn said, no, I'm far too important. So one man's ego. Corbyn's back in his comfort zone, sniping from the backbenchers. He wasn't even a particularly good backbench MP. I hate the idea that charisma matters for a politician. Who would you rather go to the pub with? I'm not going to the pub with either, so who cares? I get that. I'd love politics to go back to the boring thing that it was when I was a kid. But unfortunately, if you have a situation where you've got someone who is an absolute shyster, but a charismatic shyster, they can cause a lot of trouble in a democracy, as we saw with the Weimar Republic and as we've seen recently with Trump and Boris Johnson. I mean, Theresa May, she was not particularly charismatic at all, and I didn't like her either. But at least she didn't have a cult around her. At least she didn't have people online going, "Oh, everything Theresa May does is wonderful. I love it when she's a twat." It's just like, oh, really? This is okay. You didn't have that with her, and I think that anyone who engenders some kind of personality cult will always get up my nose. And I think that I just start from a very low bar with them, a very high bar. I don't know, maybe a high bar. I just look at them and go, this person is probably a gobshite, and they have to prove me wrong. Anyone else, I'll give them the benefit of the doubt, but no, if they've got a cult around them, I'm like, I always feel a little bit sus. I'm like, why? What makes you so special? Why have you got a cult? I don't get it. Explain. And if I don't get it, then I throw them on my Pete Doherty or my brand, what's his name? Thingy brand pile. I just go, look, fuck off. I don't get it. I just don't get it. It's like when you don't find a film funny. Okay, I'm gonna have to wind up in a minute because, oh my God, we've we're over 11 o'clock, so it's been an hour. It's been an hour and 11 minutes. Okay, so I'm going to get going. But yeah, someone's just asked about Graham. In your opinion, how is the UK prepared for Brexit? We're about as well prepared as someone who's just jumped out of an airplane without his parachute. Okay, so on that note, I'm going to say goodnight. Thank you very much for joining me. Can you all give me a like before you go? That would be brilliant and help the algorithms. I don't know how it works, but apparently that would be good. And I'm glad that you could hear me all night tonight. I'm sorry I had to switch channels at the last minute, but this should be available for catch-up for anyone who missed the beginning. I will see you again tomorrow, and we will be discussing some other topic. Bye-bye. 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 Bye.